Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the movie Weapons. Now, I've seen the trailer for this movie quite a number of times before watching it, and this will be a spoiler review, so if you've not seen this movie and you're looking forward to seeing it, then I would avoid seeing this review unless you have seen the movie or you simply don't care. So, the spoiler warning has been dropped, so if you get mad after that, then that's on you, I guess. Anyway, even from watching the trailers, I was a little bit perplexed, I suppose. A lot of people, I was watching a lot of reactions to this trailer in particular. The previous movie was, the director was behind Barbarian, which I had watched, and I recall it being kind of like sort of in the middle area from what I could recall of it. A lot of people, I guess, really liked it, and when I saw the trailer for this, I was like, oh, this is something about this isn't landing. Something about this isn't giving me the same reaction as it is giving all these other people reacting to this trailer. And even watching the movie, I was like, did we watch this, even the same trailer? That's what it felt like to me, because even going into this movie, I kind of felt like I was going to be disappointed a lot more, and I kind of was a little bit here. I think there's a lot you can fix in terms of, like, behaviors and what you're actually looking at. And one of the big things, because it's like all over the trailers, is the kids running from their house to wherever they end up being, which ends up being this other house location. And it looks, from the trailer, it looks silly. I'm just gonna say it. I'll be the first to say it. It still looks silly. It looks like the Naruto run, and I'm sorry, but were they really trying to make the Naruto run look scary? Like, did the director really think they were gonna really pull that off? I get the director is a comedian, but I feel like the blend of comedy ruins the horror in this, or the potential for horror. I feel like the mesh isn't good enough. It's not tight enough. And because I do think that the subject matter is too serious to juxtapose to comedy. That's the problem, I feel. And the same thing goes for the running, is that the way I would have done it if I was the director, I'm just going to say this now instead of holding out on it, I would have made the running or the walking in this instance, whatever it might, whatever I would change it to, I would make it look way more robotic, way more like you would actually get an up close look at the children and they would be like, very stone face in terms of expression and movement, instead of this goofy Naruto run. I think that imagery alone would have shifted so much of my perspective on this movie, because so much of it, even in the trailers, was looking really goofy. So just go into knowing that my review of this is going to be drastically different from everyone else's, because I love original horror movies. I really do. And I really want to see them succeed. So I don't want them to be held back. So that's why I'm going to give this movie a much harder time than it, because I want things to succeed. I want the writer to get better, in this case, or the director. So anyway, we do start the movie off, now that I've explained that, with a great deal of narration. It's the narration that's right out of the trailer. So it's like a mixed school, so the grading system is all put together. Anyway, we begin following Justine very briefly. And what we learn relatively early on is that Alex, one of the kids, is the only one left behind when, as 217, all the other kids got up in their goofy run and left their houses, respectively. And then we cut to seeing the kids do their goofy run, and it looks ridiculous, as I just said. Like, again, I feel like, as I just stated, I feel like just selling the idea that you're going to take this portion of it more seriously, I feel like needs to be, like, accounted for. Because I feel like that would make the ending feel more justified. And have, like, more proper reactions. I don't know. I don't think this movie fits in the trying to wiggle in comedy. Like, it doesn't work continuously. So anyways, as we learn this information about Justine, we see that Alex is being bombarded by the FBI and the police. Meanwhile, she's being bombarded by the parents and so on, and they're focusing their rage on her. This is where the movie, after the fact, gets a little bit, kind of hones in on stuff. And, so she's grabbing some alcohol, but gets a call. But we cut to her returning home and getting a knock on the door, or the bell ringing. She proceeds to do the horror gimmick of saying hello, but not answering the door at that exact time. And justifiably so. She probably thought that someone's gonna, scold her or something, right? And then the abrupt knock, which, when she finally does open the door, there is no one there. However, it is written on her car that she is a witch. Now, again, I did say spoiler alert, but that's a lot closer to what's actually happening than what the trailers would have you believe. So, anyway. So, she goes to the bar, and talks to this guy named Justin, I believe his name was. This cop friend / boyfriend. I mean, they do something with them does happen later on, I'll just say that much. And we're learning little bits of more information about, the parents' house. Alex's house's walls are covered up, so that would cause for immediate suspicion. But she gets followed, and alcohol splashed on her by the ex of some other guy, the guy that they fooled around with, cheated, I believe. So, we then do this abrupt cut into the nightmare sequence. This is in all the trailers about the one singular kid head raising up and the little slight face paint on it. And then sees a lady on the roof. She awakens and tries to get Alex to open up about what's going on from his perspective, but he is not inclined to tell her much. So she ends up sleeping in the house, or in her car, excuse me, while near the house. And when she does so, someone comes out and cuts a piece of her hair and then leaves. We then, once this little moment is done, we cut to a different character's perspective. So this will now be the format of the rest of the movie, is that we will now follow other characters and start to see their perspective. So Archer is one of the fellow parents. And we cut to slightly before the conference has taken place to find out, to air grievances and whatnot. He has a weird moment too where he astral, because I don't remember him falling asleep, maybe he did and I just didn't note it, but he like kind of astral projects into like seeing himself sleep, so I guess he did fall asleep at some point later on. And sees 217 in red and into the sky. I believe it's an AK-47 in terms of weaponry up there. Now, I've already seen certain reviews, and I can say is someone had pointed out that this is a sort of like very loose nod to like school shootings, and obviously with that weapon, that does seem to track as far as I can tell, because that weapon has been found consistently in school shootings, so there is a little bit of that going on in this movie. So obviously he's like sees like this location and he's like mourning over his son. But we cut away to this woman with red hair, and she really stands out in terms of her image here. We only get a little glimpse of her in this moment, but shortly after, he's kind of starting to, because we're still focused on his perspective, map out where his own child had gone, and bumps it to where if that were to continue in a straight line, and proceeds to try to get another parent to release their footage of their kid running out, and proceeds to see if there's any correlation between the two paths. Now, what I thought was initially going to happen at this juncture of the movie, I thought it was going to turn into a montage of the two of them actually kind of conjoining together with the other parent that was there, and then going to the other parents and then starting to collect that data together, because the police have been severely, not been doing a great job at this. So anyway, Marcus, as he does indeed do the crossing of paths, Marcus, the principal, I believe that's what his job was, comes out of almost the street, like, because they're almost interfering with each other again. Marcus, the Archer, excuse me. So, as soon as we see his wild eyes, we cut away from the attack. We cut to Paul, the policeman, who's called by Dana, the girlfriend, and we're watching his perspective now as he watches this individual trying to sneak into a building, and once he prods a needle, he begins to freak out. But then proceeds to get the text from Justine, which leads them to meeting and then having their moment later on with the list of six. So we see, once that occurs, that the lady he was seeing puts that together from her perspective. That we don't follow her perspective at all in the movie. Anyway, we then cut to James' perspective. Now, initially I thought this one was a little bit odd, but it does go somewhere eventually. This drug-obsessed guy who we see desperate enough to steal a backpack to try to sell it. We see he's desperate for money. And he eventually ends up near the paper-covered house, and he enters inside and he's trying to steal from the household itself. And he comes across the parents who are sat there still, seeming to be like in a trance of sorts, and proceeds to end up in the basement, seeing where all the kids are, with them all being in a trance. However, the parents start moving, and he makes his way out of the house. And he's still desperate enough to, try to make money, so he's like trying to sell the stuff. And he notices on the board that there's a money acquisition of finding all the kids. It's like $50,000 or something high like that. So, he calls in and he's trying to output that's the case. He sees this woman in red very briefly, the same woman as before, but is then caught by the police. They get entangled, himself and, not Archer, but the police guy. And he's like trying to convince the police guy that, Paul, I believe his name is, that he knows where the kids are, so he brings them over there. And he's there until nighttime. And then we cut to Marcus, because something is about to attack that guy too. Now we're following his point of view, the principal. So he needs to see the parents, and instead he gets the aunt of Alex, named Gladys. So she comes to his place and proceeds to cut off his boyfriend's hair, and then trance Marcus into killing him. The bell has a 6 on it, which I don't know if that has meaning behind it, but Marcus is still under said trance, and when the twig is put in the water, it seems to put him in a stasis. So if it isn't obvious quite, if I'm dancing around it, Gladius is, of course, a witch. And this is a type of voodoo magic that seems to hold control once blood is taken from the individual. And then once you cut the hair of somebody else and bind it around the twig, you can send the person of whom you got the blood from to the person you got the hair from and get them to attack the person you got the hair from in any number of ways. So cool, that's all out in the open. So, we see her putting in Justine's hair from the beginning, the teacher. So his target changes and proceeds to give chase to her, which we saw from the cop's perspective. And of course, we see the full charge this time. And then hit by a car when he was still running. And then once he's hit by said car, we finally cut to Alex, the kid, the student that was left behind. Now, this is probably the most important one out of all of them, all things considered, right? Because he was the only student remaining in the classroom. So this picks up a few days prior, seemingly. We see the parents being normal, and we get told this information that Gladys is coming in, and it's been a long time, and it feels like they don't even know Gladys, so there's definitely already... we as the audience already know, but from Alex's perspective, he's kind of like, that's weird. So we follow him in the next day, where he was waiting. Like the previous day he got picked up, and now he's not getting picked up, so he has to walk all the way home, and then see that his parents are tranced in this state. Gladys uses him as sort of this tool to then get all the students. By utilizing the parents stabbing themselves with the forks. We saw that in the trailer a little bit. And then stopping that and telling him to proceed with this. So Alex is forced to feed his parents. And he hears, I think it's her voice, but whatever. So Alex proceeds to grab the name tags of each student and is stopped. And now that we know because earlier we saw from Justine's perspective of why he was being so sheepish, now we understand the reason is that he's being held by his parents being in this situation, so he really can't do much of anything. Or that's what he feels like anyway. And indeed, we do see that once the FBI or the police, I forgot which group it was, is brought in to get to look over the house, we see that she is able to expertly move all the kids from the household and clean up before the police even arrive. So unfortunately, then we see Alex I think this is like a day later or moments later, frozen Paul and James, so they have also been taken over. Sorry, not Paul, but James and I think one of the other guys. Because Paul's the father. No, wait, no. Archer's the father. Sorry, I got my names a little mixed up there in my notes. That's why I did that. Archer and Justine are now watching the house from the outside. So they proceed to enter the house, and once they cross the salt line, which I guess is the new, like, bearing of, like, attack mode, leading into attack mode. I guess there's different ways of activating these weapons, as the movie seems to, allude to get them to attack Archer and Justine. While that's happening, Alex crosses the salt line on his own, with the parents also, idling. But then they go nuts and they begin to chase him throughout the house. So, Justine is forced to shoot Paul, as well as James, in order to save Archer. But Alex took the wand with a snippet of her hair, and she even does an upward acknowledgement, which alluded to earlier in the movie of, like, when she's saying, like, she would know if he told anyone. I think this is, like, the setup and payoff of that is that we see her being, like, before he even does it, we see her acknowledge that he's about to activate the children. So yeah, the children all are activated as weapons, and they go after Justine in this final slightly ridiculous moment where they initially break out through the initial window, and that does look cool, but then they start running through other houses, and it kind of loses that immediate, like, oh, like, this is crazy, into, oh, this kind of looks a little ridiculous now that you keep going. I think that moment should have been a little bit shorter, if anything, before the kids topple all over her, and I guess whatever this possession is allows them to be extremely stronger than they would typically be, because they rip her apart. But once that is done, because he was also possessed the briefest, Alec was. So he snaps out of it, and he's focused on finding his son, while Justine looks for Alex. So he gets his son back. Justine makes sure that Alex is fine, as the two kind of go on their separate way. And that was Weapons. And to me, I think this movie could have been a lot stronger, honestly. And again, I do think a lot of that did come down to tone. And I mean a lot of it did. I feel like, for the seriousness of which this movie is seemingly aiming toward, because some people are definitely pulling away the serious sort of, outputs of gun violence in this sense. I do feel like trying to meld that with comedy just doesn't quite mesh at all. Like, here's the thing about movies. sorry to put the burden out there, but typically, I think once you set the stage of what the atmosphere of the movie is that's kind of what's going to follow throughout your entire movie. So having, from the very get-go, the kids running out as goofy as they do, I do feel like sets this very unnecessarily goofy, outlook on the entire movie, versus, I'm trying to think of a movie, it's the movie with the chainsaw guy. He, loses his arm and there's, time travel, but that's the thing about that movie, is that even the character feels like it's fitting with the world, if that makes sense. And you saw me talking about this in another review about the world. It was in a comedy movie about the serious of the chaos of the world versus the chaos of the characters. And I feel like when there's this detachment, it's much harder to sort of laser point your movie and the message you're trying to do. And I feel like this movie is why this fails. Whereas, I think it's Ash, right? The chainsaw guy. Ash and the Forces of Evil, or whatever it's called. It's been a while, so I apologize if I don't remember the exact title, but point being is that he's like a bit of a bizarre character to begin with. So when the goofy world is matching his energy, it fits. Versus here, the characters are serious, but the encounters of what I would have assumed is trying to be horror, but this case is coming across as a comedy, is breaching into the horror. And it feels like the characters aren't matching that energy, so we have this mismatch of these two different things clashing together rather than complementing one another. And I feel like that has been something that has been severely hurting some movies, including this one. Again, I think this is an easy fix, quite frankly. Like I said, if I were the one directing this movie, I would have had it so the kids, when they're moving, are either, walking very, they didn't have to be running necessarily. I don't think that's completely necessary. I don't know. But even if they were running, to make the running feel in its very self way more stilted rather than this Naruto side to side arm run, because again it just looks goofy, versus looking like they are constantly about to attack, looking like, or very robotic, or selling that idea that they look like tools rather than kids, because that integrates itself into the title. They are weapons. They look like weapons now that they are moving like these almost androids, like an android equivalent, right? See, my mind is trying to reattach what the movie is aiming for, rather than breaking away from it and having these two different tones feeling like they're clashing against each other versus, again, cooperating with each other. Again, very Ash and equivalency, where those two feel like the character is meshing with the world. He's not breaking away from the chaotic world. He is a little chaotic himself, and becomes even more so throughout the movie. But here, it's the kids running goofily is breaking away from the adults taking this situation very seriously. And, I do feel like having that carried throughout, even when the principal gets taken over and he's also running like that, and you're tracking this long moment where he's traveling, and it continuously looks goofy, and it looks goofy, and then he gets the car, and it's like, and he does have that messed up face. But again, I feel like that in itself would lend itself, if it matched with what I just said, right? Very robotic running, the face is very non-emotional rather than in that way. And that would include the way your arms are positioned when you're running. It feels like a small detail, but I don't know. I feel like it kind of ruins a lot of the movie because, again, this big clash is happening. So I'm gonna have to give this movie... Honestly, I think this might be one of my lower scores for an original movie, which I feel really bad for, but I don't know. I don't think this is as tight as it could be. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. And I feel like it's very close to a 5 because of this, rather than pushing towards a 7. Because I think there are just too many goofy moments. There are just too many, and it almost feels like it's almost meh. It really, really is. So, yeah, I do think that this movie, unfortunately, is a little closer to meh than being good. I hope that this director learns from this. Since there are a lot of people saying this is good, I feel like he isn't going to learn anything good about the reviews, so that's why I wanted to be a bit more realistic and harsh, because that's what I took from the movie. So I'm going to lay into that, because I feel like this could be an improved upon moment. So that is my review for Weapons. If you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you to my petition about small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord, so you can join Collab Shield, all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, bye!